Little black boy gave silent signal to police dog. What it discovered next shocked everyone. The crowd inside Seattle Central Station moved like a restless sea, voices blending with the sharp hiss of arriving trains. Among the noise, an 8-year-old boy named Malik Carter stood between a man and a woman who looked too polished for the chaos around them. The woman's gloved hand rested on Malik's shoulder, firm but disguised as affectionate. The man beside her adjusted his expensive coat, glancing at the platform clock as if time owed him obedience. A few feet away, a German shepherd named Shadow stopped mid-stride. His handler, Detective Ryan Cole, felt the leash tighten suddenly. The dog's ears lifted, eyes locked onto the small boy standing by the couple. Shadow's tail stiffened. His instincts whispered something Ryan could not yet hear. Malik's face stayed still, his lips pressed tight, but his right hand began to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 soft taps against his thigh. A rhythm too deliberate to be random. Ryan's eyes narrowed. The boy looked up, and for the briefest second, their gazes met. Fear lived behind those eyes, but so did something sharper, awareness. Ryan's pulse quickened. He could not explain it, but every fiber of him knew this was no ordinary family. The boy's silence was not fear. It was a coded scream for help. Detective Ryan Cole crouched beside Shadow, pretending to adjust the leash as his eyes followed the trio weaving through the station crowd. The woman noticed him first. She was elegant, controlled movements, expensive perfume, the kind of confidence that came from hiding behind perfection. "Beautiful dog," she said with a polished smile. "You must keep him busy." Ryan returned the polite tone. "He keeps me out of trouble." "Where are you folks headed today?" "To Seattle," the woman replied smoothly. "Family trip." Her fingers tightened on the boy's shoulder. "Our son Malik has always loved trains." Malik nodded faintly, gaze locked on the floor. His posture was too disciplined, too careful for a child his age. He did not look like a boy excited for a family journey. He looked like someone trying not to breathe too loudly. Shadow's low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. It was quiet but unmistakable. The sound made Ryan glance down sharply. Shadow never growled without reason. The man beside the woman chuckled, but it rang false. "Guess he smells our breakfast sandwiches," he said. Dogs always love sausage. His hand clamped on Malik's shoulder, a gesture that was meant to look casual but spoke of control. Ryan straightened slowly, scanning their tickets. The woman's name read Diana Hayes. The man, Victor Hayes. Everything looked proper, almost too proper. "You folks live in the city?" Ryan asked conversationally. Victor smiled, showing perfect teeth. "Just moving there. New beginnings." Ryan nodded, masking his suspicion with a friendly grin. "Safe travels, then." Diana inclined her head graciously, guiding Malik forward. "Thank you, officer." Shadow, however, refused to move. His body remained tense, tail rigid, eyes locked on Malik. As the train doors hissed open, the boy hesitated for half a second. Just long enough for Ryan to notice. Malik's left hand brushed against the handle of his small backpack, a tiny, nervous motion, but his right hand tapped once more against his thigh. Ryan's chest tightened. 5 taps again. The same rhythm as before. Victor turned abruptly, his tone sharpening. "Come on, son." The man's grip on Malik's shoulder returned, firmer now, leaving no space for hesitation. Ryan felt an unease settle deep inside him. He had been in law enforcement for 12 years, worked with Shadow for 6. The dog had detected everything from narcotics to fugitives hiding in plain sight. And right now, every part of Shadow's body screamed danger. Ryan exhaled slowly, forcing his mind to stay measured. "Maybe I'm imagining things," he muttered under his breath. But Shadow's low rumble said otherwise. As the train began to roll forward and the figures disappeared behind the tinted glass, Ryan could still see Malik's small face near the window, expression unreadable. Eyes hollow, yet burning with something unsaid. Shadow's instincts had never failed before, and Ryan could not shake the feeling that this time it was not wrong either. 3 weeks earlier, the world Malik Carter knew was small but safe. He lived with his grandmother, a kind woman with tired hands and a soft voice, in a modest house on the edge of Savannah, Georgia. Their evenings were always the same. Warm food, a creaky old radio playing gospel songs, and his grandmother's stories that made the night feel gentle. Malik loved how her laughter could turn even silence into comfort. On a quiet afternoon, a black SUV pulled up outside their small home. It was polished, out of place on their dusty street. Two strangers stepped out, Diana and Victor Hayes. They looked official, dressed neatly with kind expressions that did not match their sharp, watchful eyes. "Mrs. Carter?" Diana said, flashing a warm smile. "We are with the Children's Future Foundation. We heard about Malik's good grades and wanted to offer him a scholarship program in Seattle. Private school, full sponsorship, everything covered." Malik's grandmother hesitated. She had always dreamed of a better life for her grandson, but something in Diana's smile felt too smooth, too rehearsed. "That sounds generous," she said slowly, "but I'd like to know more about your foundation." Victor handed her a neat folder filled with official-looking papers and photographs of smiling children in uniforms. Everything looked perfect, convincing enough to calm her worries. "Malik deserves opportunities we can give," Diana added softly. "A stable home, top education, and bright future. You've done a wonderful job raising him, ma'am. Let us help with the rest." Her words were gentle, persuasive, dressed in kindness. After a long pause, Malik's grandmother nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "If this is truly for his good." Diana smiled again, victorious. "You're making the best choice for him." For the next few days, Malik was excited and nervous. He packed his few clothes, his favorite toy car, and the tape recorder his grandmother had given him. "So you'll always have my voice," she had said, recording herself saying bedtime prayers. Then one morning the SUV came back. Malik waved goodbye to the woman who had been his whole world, not knowing it would be the last time he saw her face through the window. Neighbors saw the car drive away and disappear down the road. Hours turned into days, and his grandmother's calls went unanswered. When Malik woke up the next morning, he was no longer in Georgia. He was in a large, cold house with spotless floors and locked windows. Diana's tone was different now, sterile, controlling. Victor watched every move he made. There were other children too, quiet and pale, their eyes hollow. He tried asking when he would see his grandmother again, but no one answered. Only silence filled the rooms. That night, as he lay in a strange bed that smelled of bleach and fear, Malik finally understood what had happened. That night, Malik learned the difference between being chosen and being captured. The train hummed steadily across the tracks, its rhythm almost peaceful to anyone who was not living a nightmare. Malik Carter sat between Diana and Victor Hayes, both looking like any other well-dressed couple on their way to a weekend getaway. Diana flipped through a glossy travel magazine, occasionally glancing down at Malik with a perfectly practiced smile. Victor leaned back, pretending to nap, one hand resting near the boy's shoulder, a silent warning that he was never really asleep. Outside, the landscape blurred by, but Malik's focus was on the people around him. Every sound, every face. He studied passengers with quiet desperation, looking for someone who might see beyond appearances. He noticed a young mother feeding her baby, an old man reading a newspaper, a pair of college students laughing softly. Each face looked kind for a second, then turned away. Malik's heart sank. But then he remembered his grandmother's words. "If you ever feel unseen, make yourself heard without words." His small fingers began tapping lightly on his thigh, 5 short taps. A pattern. He had once read about police signals in a book his teacher gave him. He did not know if it would mean anything to anyone, but it was all he had. Across the aisle, a police dog suddenly straightened. Shadow's ears twitched, head lifting as he gave a low, uncertain growl. His handler, Detective Ryan Cole, paused mid-conversation with a train officer. He followed Shadow's gaze toward the boy sitting quietly beside the elegant couple. Ryan frowned. The child's posture was still, but his eyes, they spoke of fear that had learned to stay silent. Shadow let out a faint whine. Ryan's instincts sharpened. He pretended to check the overhead luggage racks, slowly moving closer to the family seat. Diana smiled politely as he passed, her tone sweet. "Beautiful dog," she said, trying to sound casual. "Thank you," Ryan replied, forcing a nod. "He's well trained to notice unusual behavior." Diana's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Then Victor shifted in his seat. Malik could feel the tension between them tighten like a wire. He kept his eyes down, but his mind raced. When the snack cart came by, Malik whispered a soft "thank you" to the attendant and took his drink. He waited until Diana looked away, then slipped a folded piece of paper under the tray and pushed it toward the aisle. The paper slid just far enough to catch the attention of the train conductor, Nora Bennett. She picked it up discreetly, assuming it was trash, and tucked it into her pocket. Minutes later, when she was alone near the service station, she unfolded it. The note was written in shaky, uneven letters. "We are not their children. Help. Black backpack has proof." Her breath caught. She looked up instantly, eyes scanning the car. The boy was staring straight ahead, hands folded in his lap. But there was a quiet plea in his expression that needed no sound. Nora folded the note back, her heart pounding. She knew panic would only make things worse. She pressed a button on her walkie, her voice calm but coded. "Unit check, car 3. Passenger verification requested." Ryan, who was already walking through the car with Shadow, heard the transmission. He responded quietly, "Copy that." His eyes flicked toward the boy again. Now he was certain. Malik saw Ryan's subtle nod. It was not a promise, but it was hope. Diana glanced at the window, unaware of the silent alliance forming around her. Victor adjusted his seatbelt and muttered something about delays, his tone impatient. Outside, the train sped past the last signal of the city border. The fields grew darker, lonelier. Nora's voice trembled as she whispered to herself, "Come on, hold on, kid." Because the train had just crossed the border out of town, and the next stop was 2 hours away. The train rattled over the long bridge, the sun already sinking low behind the trees. Ryan Cole's calm walk had turned into a quiet, calculated pursuit. Every step he took down the aisle was measured, his hand resting lightly near his holster. Shadow padded close beside him, head low, nostrils flaring. The air carried tension sharp enough to slice through conversation. A few rows ahead, Nora Bennett stood near Diana and Victor Hayes, pretending to check tickets. "Good afternoon," she said smoothly. "Routine verification. May I see your tickets again, please?" Diana looked up, the practiced warmth never leaving her face. "Of course," she replied, opening her designer purse and producing the folded slips. "Is something wrong?" "Not at all," Nora said, smiling faintly. "Just confirming our passenger log." But her hand trembled ever so slightly as she held the scanner. Shadow gave a deep, low growl that turned several heads. His body stiffened, eyes locked on the black backpack resting by Victor's feet. The dog's hackles rose and his muscles tensed. Ryan's voice was calm but firm. "Sir, can I ask what's in the bag?" Victor's grip on the strap tightened. "Personal items," he said quickly. "Is that a problem, officer?" Before Ryan could answer, Shadow barked once, a sharp, authoritative sound that made the entire car fall silent. Malik's heart pounded. He could feel every beat echoing in his chest. His small hands gripped the armrest, nails digging into the fabric. Diana's voice cracked under sudden pressure. "Please, the dog is scaring my son." Ryan's tone cooled. "Is he?" He looked at Malik, and for a moment, the noise around them vanished. Just a boy and an officer locked in silent understanding. From behind Malik, a quiet voice broke through. A little girl with tangled brown hair leaned forward and whispered, "They told me not to talk too." Malik turned. Her name tag from a daycare hung halfway torn from her sweater, Ava Brooks. Her wide eyes mirrored the same trapped fear he carried. That was the moment, the one his grandmother had told him would come, the time when silence was no longer safety. Malik rose from his seat, his knees trembling but his voice clear. "My name is Malik Carter," he said, his tone shaking but fierce. "I do not belong to them." The entire cabin froze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, newspapers lowered, coffee cups halted mid-air. Diana's smile vanished. Victor's face turned pale, then hard. What are you saying?" Diana stammered, her voice dripping with fake confusion. Ryan stepped forward, badge flashing. "Everyone stay seated," he ordered. "Seattle police. Nobody move." Victor lunged for the backpack, but Shadow was faster. With a single, powerful leap, the German shepherd knocked it from his hand. It hit the floor with a dull thud, unzipping slightly on impact. A burst of papers spilled out across the aisle. Fake passports, printed adoption certificates, photographs of missing children, and stacks of cash bundled tight with rubber bands. A collective gasp filled the train. Nora's face went white. Passengers shrank back in disbelief, murmurs rippling through the car. Victor tried to push past Ryan, but Shadow snarled, blocking every escape. Ryan caught Victor's arm, twisting it behind his back and forcing him down against the seat. "You are under arrest," he said flatly. Diana's composure finally shattered. "Please," she screamed. "We did not hurt anyone. You do not understand." But Malik did. He had lived those words long enough to know what they meant. Lies covered in perfume and false smiles. Ava began to cry softly. Nora knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You are safe now, sweetheart," she whispered. Ryan opened the backpack fully, spreading the contents across the seat so that every passenger could see. "These documents," he said, "belong to families that have been searching for their children for months." He turned to Victor. "You are finished." Victor spat on the floor. "You have no proof." Malik reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, silver recorder. The same one Victor had given him weeks ago to practice his diction. Malik pressed play. The sound of Victor's voice filled the cabin. "Make sure the next one looks healthy. The buyers pay more when they look strong." Diana screamed again, covering her ears. Passengers gasped in horror. A man in a business suit muttered, "Dear God." Ryan's face hardened. "That is all the proof I need." He snapped the cuffs onto Victor's wrists. Shadow stood guard, teeth bared. As officers at the next station prepared to intercept, the passengers sat in stunned silence. Malik leaned against Nora's arm, shaking, not from fear anymore, but from release. Diana was sobbing uncontrollably as Ryan read her rights. Victor refused to look at anyone, his jaw set in cold defiance. Outside, the train slowed, sirens wailing faintly in the distance. For a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, in that frozen silence, everyone on board realized that a little boy's courage had just dismantled a monster's disguise. The next morning, headlines across the country told the story that no one on that train would ever forget. The FBI had already stepped in by the time the passengers disembarked. What began as a quiet police investigation quickly turned into a nationwide operation. Ryan Cole's report detailed every second of the encounter. The silent taps, the note, the black backpack, and the bravery of one small boy who had risked everything to be heard. The evidence was overwhelming, but what truly broke open the case was the voice recording found inside Malik's jacket. When the FBI agents played it, the room fell silent. Diana and Victor Hayes' voices filled the speakers, cold and businesslike, discussing deliveries, payments, and new families. Every word confirmed what Malik had lived through. The human trafficking network was real, powerful, and far-reaching. The operation that followed was named Operation Malik. Within 48 hours, federal agents raided multiple properties across 3 states. Over 40 members of the ring were arrested. Hidden files, fake documents, and even secret holding houses were discovered. Dozens of missing children were found and rescued, many of them gone for years. Ryan and Shadow became heroes overnight. The department honored them with the Medal of Valor for their bravery and instinct. Ryan, however, refused to take full credit. "The real hero," he said at the ceremony, "is the boy who never stopped believing someone would listen." Nora Bennett, who had risked her job to send the alert, resigned from the railway a month later. With help from local donors and child safety advocates, she founded the Silent Signal Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to reuniting missing children with their families. Her first fundraiser was named after Malik. When the authorities brought Malik back to Georgia, his grandmother stood waiting at the gate of her small home. The old woman's hands trembled as the car door opened. Malik stepped out slowly, unsure if it was real. Then she ran to him, her shawl fluttering in the wind. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. The sound of Malik's small sobs against her shoulder said everything words could not. Ryan watched from the car, Shadow resting his head on his knee. He smiled faintly, feeling something he had not felt in years. Peace. That night, for the first time in weeks, Malik lay in his own bed. The walls were quiet, the air smelled like his grandmother's soap, and the stars blinked faintly through the window. He turned once, instinctively glancing toward the door, then stopped himself. Because for the first time in weeks, Malik slept without checking if the doors were locked. 6 months later, the courtroom was filled to capacity. Reporters whispered from the back row. Sketch artists captured every moment, and a quiet sense of justice hung in the air. Malik Carter sat at the witness stand, his small hands folded in front of him, his feet barely touching the floor. The prosecutor's questions came gently. Malik answered each one with calm honesty, his voice steady and clear. He did not cry and he did not tremble. He simply told the truth, every word that Diana and Victor Hayes had tried so hard to bury. Across the room, the two sat in silence, their once proud faces now pale and hollow. The evidence against them was undeniable. When the judge finally spoke, his tone carried both authority and admiration. "This court has seen many witnesses," he said, looking down at Malik, "but never one with such courage. Young man, you have done more than bring criminals to justice. You have given a voice to those who could not speak for themselves." Ryan Cole sat in the gallery beside Shadow, who rested quietly at his feet. Nora Bennett was there too, holding a small pendant in her hands, a charm shaped like a signal tap. None of them said a word, but the pride in their eyes said enough. When the hearing ended, Malik stepped out of the courthouse holding his grandmother's hand. All he wanted was the warmth of sunlight and the feeling of safety beside the woman who had never stopped praying for him. Sometimes heroes do not wear uniforms or capes. Sometimes they are just little boys who refuse to stay silent. And as Malik looked up at the sky, the story closed with one final line. And somewhere between fear and courage, Malik Carter found his voice and changed everything.